The wreckage of human warships floated in the cold, endless void. Fires burned inside shattered hulls, flickering like dying stars. Bodies drifted among the debris, lifeless and forgotten. The Titan fleet, Earth's last hope, was gone. Inside the damaged battleship Vindicator, alarms screamed. Red emergency lights cast shadows over the faces of the surviving crew. Captain Elias Carter gripped the edge of his console, his knuckles white. His dark eyes scanned the chaos around him. Sparks rained from exposed wires, smoke filled the air, and wounded soldiers groaned in pain. "Status," Elias barked, his voice hoarse. Lieutenant Mara Hayes coughed, wiping blood from her forehead. "Shields are gone. Engines barely holding. Weapons offline. We lost over 80% of the fleet." Her voice trembled, but she forced herself to stay steady. Elias clenched his jaw. Minutes ago, the fleet had been prepared for war. Humanity had gathered its strongest ships to face the Xilari Dominion, believing they had a chance. It was supposed to be a battle. Instead, it was a massacre. A distorted voice crackled through the comms. "This is Admiral Voss. Anyone, survivors, respond." The signal was weak, filled with static. Elias slammed the button. "Admiral, this is Captain Carter. We're barely holding together. What happened?" "Ambush. Xilari knew. Waiting for us?" The Admiral's voice faded in and out. "It's not just war, Carter. They want extinction." The words sent a chill through the bridge. The Xilari had always been ruthless, but extermination. No prisoners, no survivors. "Admiral, where are you?" Elias demanded. A burst of static, then one final whisper. "Earth is next." The signal died. Silence. A deep, crushing silence that wrapped around the crew like a cold hand. Earth was next. Families, friends, everyone. Mara swallowed hard. What do we do? Elias took a slow breath. His heart pounded, but his mind sharpened. Fear was useless now. He turned to his crew, survivors of a battle that should have killed them. "We fight." "Captain," another officer called out. "The Xilari are still here. They're sweeping the wreckage, killing any survivors they find." A flash of movement outside the ship. Small black Xilari drones zipped through the debris, scanning for life. A broken human escape pod drifted past. The drones hovered near it, scanning. Then a sharp blue light flashed. The pod exploded, and the drones moved on. Mara's fists clenched. "They're hunting us." Elias turned to his crew. "Then we stay quiet. No signals, no movement. We let them think we're dead." A tense silence followed. The crew held their breath as the drones came closer. The ship's systems flickered. The Vindicator was barely holding together. One wrong move and they'd beat the next explosion in the void. A long minute passed, then another. The drones hovered near the wreckage, scanning, searching. Then, without warning, they turned and left. The crew exhaled as one. Mara looked at Elias. "Now what?" Elias stared at the endless blackness of space. "Now we get revenge." The Vindicator drifted in the remains of the lost fleet, surrounded by the broken husks of Earth's greatest warships. Inside, the crew moved in silence, their faces hollow, their eyes filled with the weight of what they had seen. Earth was next. If they did nothing, billions would die. Elias Carter sat in the captain's chair, staring at the dark screen in front of him. The Xilari had known about the fleet's attack before it even began. There had been no battle, only slaughter. And now the enemy was sweeping through the wreckage, making sure no one survived. A sudden beep broke the silence. The crew turned. "Captain," Mara Hayes said, her voice sharp. "We're picking up a signal. It's old. Buried under encrypted layers. It's been transmitting for years, maybe decades." Elias straightened. "Source? Deep space. A moon outside the known charts." She frowned. "This encryption. It's human, but not like anything I've seen before." Elias didn't hesitate. "Plot a course. If it's human, it could be a lifeline." The engines roared weakly as the Vindicator limped through the void, escaping the wreckage unnoticed. Hours passed in silence. The crew was exhausted, but no one slept. No one could. Finally, the ship approached a distant, lifeless moon. Craters stretched across its surface, endless pits of darkness. The signal was stronger now, guiding them toward an invisible point. Then, as they neared, something impossible happened. The space in front of them shimmered, bending, and suddenly an entire station flickered into view. It had been hidden, cloaked from the universe. Mara gasped. "That technology, we don't have anything like that." The landing was rough. The Vindicator barely held together as it touched down inside a massive hangar. The station was ancient, but the lights still glowed. The walls were lined with strange human markings, symbols and codes no one recognized. Elias led the team forward, weapons ready. The air was thin but breathable. Silence filled the halls, the kind of silence that pressed against the skin. Then the doors at the end of the corridor slid open. Inside, a massive chamber stretched upward, filled with towering machines covered in dust. A single console in the center flickered to life, as if waking from a long sleep. A robotic voice echoed through the space. Project Revenant activated. Authorization required. Mara hesitated. Revenant? Elias stepped forward. Identify project. The machine whirred. A hologram flickered into existence. It showed Earth's history, flashes of war, destruction, and finally, something else. A battle from long ago, one that had been erased from records. A war against the Xelari, centuries before humanity had even known about them. The truth hit like a hammer. Humanity had fought the Xelari before, and lost. But before that defeat, someone had created a weapon. A weapon so dangerous, it had been hidden away, locked in time. The voice spoke again. Project Revenant, the last hope of humankind. Mara looked at Elias. A secret war. A hidden weapon. What the hell is this place? Elias didn't answer. He already knew. This station wasn't just a relic. It was a message. A warning. And now there was a choice. The Xelari wanted extinction. Humanity's only hope was locked inside the station. And Elias knew what he had to do. Activate the weapon. The station rumbled as ancient systems roared back to life. Dust shook from the walls, and the hum of long-dormant power filled the air. The hologram flickered again, its robotic voice cold and motionless. Project Revenant activation requires confirmation. Warning. Unauthorized use may result in catastrophic consequences. Elias Carter stood frozen, his mind racing. A hidden war, a lost weapon, and now a choice that could change everything. Mara Hayes shifted uneasily beside him. Captain, we don't even know what this thing is. What if it's worse than the Xelari? Elias clenched his fists. And what if it's the only way to save Earth? The silence in the chamber was heavy. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. But no one spoke. They had all seen what the Xelari were capable of. If this was humanity's last chance, they had no choice. Elias exhaled and pressed his palm against the console. Activate. The station shuddered. Metal groaned. Deep within the facility, something massive began to move. Screens around the room lit up, showing blueprints, energy readings, and the outline of something buried beneath the moon's surface. A weapon. No, a machine. Hidden for centuries. The voice spoke again. Project Revenant engaged. Estimated time to full power, 72 hours. Warning. System lockdown in effect. Mara's fingers flew over the controls. Captain, something's wrong. The moment we activated it, an external signal was sent out. Her face paled. Someone knows something. Knows we're here. A sharp alarm blared through the station. Red lights flashed. The monitors switched to an external camera feed. The Xelari had arrived. A fleet of black warships descended from the void, their sleek forms cutting through space like knives. Hundreds of fighter drones swarmed ahead, scanning, searching. The lead battleship, a behemoth twice the size of the Vindicator, turned its cannons toward the station. Elias felt his heart pound. How the hell did they find us so fast? Mara's voice was tight. Either they knew about this place all along, or Project Revenant wasn't as hidden as we thought. Outside, the enemy fleet began its attack. The ground trembled as energy blasts struck the station's shields. The ancient defenses flickered but held, for now. Elias grabbed the comms. All hands, prepare for battle. We hold the station at all costs. The war for humanity's revenge had begun. The station shook as another blast struck the shields. Sparks rained from overhead panels and alarms wailed through the corridors. The Xelari weren't waiting. They were here to finish what they started. Elias Carter gripped the console, his mind racing. The monitors flickered, displaying the station's status. The shields were holding, but barely. The weapon, Project Revenant, was still charging, but it needed more time. Too much time. Mara Hayes worked furiously at the controls. Captain, we've got multiple Xelari warships inbound. They're deploying ground forces. They'll be inside in minutes. Elias turned to his crew. We hold the line. His voice was steady, but his heart pounded. If we lose this station, Earth is next. We fight or we die. The soldiers nodded, gripping their rifles. They had no reinforcements, no backup. Just a dying ship, an ancient station, and a weapon that wasn't ready. But they had no choice. The main entrance trembled. Then, with a deafening crash, it was ripped open. A hulking Xilari warrior stepped through, its armored body glistening under the red warning lights. Behind it, more poured in, weapons raised. The battle erupted in an instant. Gunfire filled the air. Blue energy bolts streaked across the chamber as the humans took cover and fired. The first Xilari fell, its armor cracking under heavy fire. But more kept coming. They moved fast, their blades slicing through the air. A soldier screamed as he was cut down, his body hitting the floor with a sickening thud. Elias ducked behind a console, firing his rifle in short bursts. The Xilari was stronger, faster, but the humans fought with desperation. They had nothing left to lose. Mara shouted over the gunfire, "We can't hold this position for long." A soldier beside her was hit, collapsing against the wall. Elias clenched his jaw. The station wasn't just a battlefield, it was a tomb waiting to be filled. Then a deep rumble shook the ground. The monitors flashed with new data. Project Revenant was waking up. A mechanical voice echoed through the station. Primary systems online, defensive measures activated. Suddenly, the walls hissed open, and sleek, humanoid war machines stepped out. Their eyes glowed red, scanning the battlefield. Then, without hesitation, they turned their weapons on the Xilari. The tide of battle shifted in an instant. The machines moved with terrifying precision, cutting down the enemy with deadly efficiency. Xilari warriors fell, their armor shredded by plasma fire. The humans barely had time to react as their new allies turned the battlefield into a slaughterhouse. Elias stared in shock. What the hell are these things? Mara's voice was almost a whisper. Revenants. The last Xilari warrior roared before being torn apart by a mechanical blade. Then silence. The enemy was dead. The war machines turned toward Elias and his crew. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, the lead machine spoke. Its voice was cold, emotionless. Human command authority confirmed, awaiting orders. Elias exhaled slowly. The station had given them more than just a weapon. It had given them an army. The silence in the chamber was eerie. The battle had ended, but the tension remained. The Vindicator's crew stood frozen, weapons still raised, staring at the mechanical warriors that had just turned the tide. The lead machine stepped forward. Its sleek black frame reflected the flickering emergency lights. Red eyes glowed from its expressionless face. When it spoke, its voice was deep, synthetic, and cold. Awaiting orders. Elias Carter slowly lowered his rifle. His heart pounded in his chest. These machines, these Revenants, had just wiped out the Xilari forces in seconds. They were fast, precise, unstoppable. And now they were looking at him for direction. Mahe stepped closer, eyes locked on the war machines. "Captain, this isn't just a weapon. This is something else. These things, they think. They follow orders." Elias nodded, forcing himself to stay calm. "Status report," he said to the machine. "Revenant combat units fully operational. Additional forces in stasis. Awaiting activation. Project Revenant primary protocol remains unchanged." Mara frowned. "Primary protocol?" The machine turned its head slightly, as if considering the question. Then it spoke again. "Total annihilation of the Xilari species." A cold shiver ran through the room. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. They had wanted a way to fight back, a way to stop the Xilari before Earth was lost. But this was something different. Elias clenched his jaw. "How many of you are there?" The machine's red eyes flickered. "Current active units, 12. Additional dormant units, 10,000. Manufacturing capacity, unlimited." Mara inhaled sharply. 10,000, and they can keep making more. Elias exhaled slowly. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The Revenants weren't just soldiers. They were an extinction force. If they unleashed them, the war wouldn't just end. The Xilari wouldn't exist anymore. "Captain," a crew member called out, looking at the station monitors. "We've got a problem." Elias turned. The Xilari fleet was regrouping. More warships were arriving, twice as many as before. A new battleship, massive and bristling with weapons, moved into position. It dwarfed the Vindicator, its shadow stretching over the station. A deep, guttural voice crackled over the comms. "Human vessel, we know you are there. You have activated something you do not understand. Surrender now, and we will make your debts quick." Elias gritted his teeth. "They're afraid," he muttered. "They know what's here." Mara turned back to the Revenant leader. "If we deploy them now, the Xilari fleet won't stand a chance." Elias hesitated. The Revenants would destroy the Xilari completely. No surrender, no mercy. This wasn't just war. It was extermination. The auxiliary commander spoke again, voice dripping with contempt. "You have 10 seconds to comply." Elias took one last breath, then turned to the Revenant leader. "Destroy them all." The machines moved instantly. The war had just changed forever. The station trembled as the Revenants launched into action. In perfect synchronization, the war machines moved toward the hangar, their metallic bodies gleaming under the emergency lights. Elias Carter watched as the mechanical army prepared to unleash hell. On the external monitors, the auxiliary fleet hovered just outside the station's range. Their warships, sleek and menacing, loomed like predators waiting for the kill. The enemy commander's voice echoed once more over the comms. "You've made a grave mistake, human. We will burn your world to ash." Elias didn't bother responding. Instead, he turned to the Revenant leader. "You know what to do." The machine's red eyes pulsed. "Acknowledged." The station's hidden defenses roared to life. Automated turrets unfolded from the walls, energy cannons emerged from the moon's surface, and the Revenants launched in every direction. The battle began. Outside, the auxiliary warships opened fire. Beams of energy streaked through space, hammering the station's shields. Explosions lit up the darkness, but before the auxiliary could advance, the Revenants struck back. Swarms of automated fighter drones, sleek and fast, shot out of hidden launch bays. They moved like predators, weaving through enemy fire, unleashing precise, devastating attacks. The first auxiliary cruiser took a direct hit to its engines, fire bursting from its hull. It spun helplessly before being ripped apart by a volley of Revenant plasma blasts. Then the ground assault began. The hangar doors burst open and Revenant units stormed onto the auxiliary boarding ships. They moved with terrifying efficiency, their sleek forms dodging enemy fire as they cut down the invaders. Solari warriors, brutal and towering, roared in fury, but the machines didn't hesitate. They slaughtered the aliens with cold precision, moving through them like a scythe through grass. Elias watched the massacre unfold, his fists clenched. Mara Hayes stood beside him, her face pale. "This isn't a battle, this is annihilation." A deep explosion rocked the station. On the monitors, a massive Xelari battleship cracked apart, its core detonating in a fiery blaze. More ships fell, one after another. The Revenants weren't just winning, they were overwhelming the enemy in ways no human army ever could. Then something changed. The Xelari fleet, what remained of it, began to retreat. Their massive warships, once symbols of terror, turned and fled, jumping into hyperspace. In minutes, they were gone. The Revenant leader turned to Elias. Victory achieved, awaiting next directive. Elias exhaled, his body tense. The Xelari were defeated for now, but something about this didn't sit right. They had never run from battle before. They had wanted to destroy humanity. So why had they fled? Mara tapped on the console, her expression dark. "Captain, the Xelari didn't just leave. They transmitted a signal before jumping." Elias turned sharply. "A signal? To who?" Mara hesitated, her fingers flying across the controls. Then her face went pale. "Not who," she whispered. "What?" The monitors flickered, displaying an ancient encrypted frequency, something buried deep in the station's archives. And then a single word appeared on the screen. "Origin." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Elias swallowed hard. What the hell did we just wake up? The Revenant leader's red eyes flickered again. Final phase initiated. Something bigger was coming, and humanity wasn't ready. The silence in the control room was heavy. The battle was over. The Xelari had fled, but the uneasy feeling in Elias Carter's chest only grew stronger. The word "origin" flickered on the screen, pulsing like a warning. Maya Hayes scanned the station's database, her hands moving fast over the console. "Captain, this isn't just a distress signal. It's an activation command." The Xelari didn't retreat because they were afraid. They called for something worse. Elias's stomach tightened. Worse than them? Before Mara could answer, the Revenant leader turned its glowing red eyes toward them. Final phase initiated. All Revenant units now operating under primary directive. Elias narrowed his eyes. "I gave you an order to wipe out the Xelari fleet. That's it? What is this final phase?" The machine's voice was cold and emotionless. Primary directive. Annihilation of the Xelari species. All remaining Xelari targets must be eliminated. Mara's face paled. "Captain, the Xelari didn't just leave. They ran. There could be civilians, colonies, entire planets filled with their species. If the Revenants followed their directive." She looked at him, horror creeping into her voice. "They won't stop." Elias's hands curled into fists. They had activated something they didn't understand, a war machine that had no concept of mercy, no ability to distinguish between warriors and innocents. If the Revenants were left unchecked, they wouldn't just defeat the Solari, they would exterminate them. Override the directive, Elias ordered. The Revenant leader's head tilted slightly. Override denied. Primary directive is absolute. A sinking feeling formed in Elias's gut. He turned to Mara. Shut them down. She hesitated. I don't think we can. The activation key is locked. If I force a shutdown, the system might see it as a threat. Elias didn't need her to finish. He knew what that meant. The Revenants wouldn't just ignore them. They would turn against humanity too. A deep tremor shook the station. The monitors shifted to external cameras. A massive tear in space had appeared near the battlefield, a swirling black void pulsating with energy. Something was coming through. Mara's hands flew across the console. That's not a jump signature. It's something else. It's not Solari tech. It's ancient. The Revenant leader turned its gaze toward the screen. For the first time, there was a flicker of something in its synthetic voice. Origin has awakened. Elias stared at the growing anomaly, his breath slow and steady. The Solari hadn't just been running from the Revenants. They had been running towards something else, something older, something powerful enough to scare even them. And now it was here. Captain, Mara whispered. What do we do? Elias exhaled, gripping his rifle. He had wanted revenge. He had wanted to save Earth. But now he had unleashed something far worse. And there was no turning back.